My name is Evangeline, and I didn't discover powerful prayer techniques in a church conference or a miracle rally. I discovered them in traffic jams, arguments, overdue bills, sleepless nights, and quiet moments when I whispered, "Lord, I don't know what to do anymore." I used to think prayer belonged to holy people, prayed at holy times, in holy places. But the truth is, prayer lives in ordinary days filled with real problems. And this is the story of how God taught me to pray in ways that changed not my circumstances first, but me. I wasn't always the woman I am now. Back then, my life looked normal on the outside: work, church on Sundays, smiling pictures online. But inside, I was tired, overwhelmed, and honestly, spiritually dry. I prayed, yes, but they were mostly rushed words. "Lord, please help me. Lord, please fix this. Lord, please do something." I thought prayer was about God moving faster. But slowly I learned. Prayer was often about me becoming still. One morning, while sitting at the edge of my bed, I said softly, "Lord, teach me how to really pray." And He did, through challenges that arrived one after another. This is how it began. The first challenge came at work. A misunderstanding exploded into something bigger. Someone accused me of saying things I didn't say. My name was suddenly being whispered in corners. My heart pounded. My stomach tightened. Inside I was saying, "This isn't fair. I didn't do anything wrong." I wanted to defend myself, argue, explain, justify. But for the first time, I tried something new. The prayer of surrender. I whispered while walking to the restroom, tears pressing behind my eyes. "Lord, you know the truth. I surrender my reputation to you. Defend me in your way, not mine." In my heart I heard a quiet response. "Be still." Later that day, my coworker confronted me, raising her voice. I wanted to snap back. Instead, I said gently, "Can I listen to you first?" She poured out her anger. I simply breathed and prayed silent prayers between sentences. "Jesus, calm my heart. Jesus, guard my tongue. Jesus, be my wisdom." By the end of the conversation, she looked at me and said quietly, "I think I misunderstood." It wasn't dramatic. There were no thunderclaps from heaven. But something changed inside me. I learned the prayer of surrender isn't weakness. It is placing battles back into God's hands. Second challenge, anxiety. Nights became my enemy. I would lie awake rehearsing worries. Did I do enough? What if I fail? What if tomorrow collapses? My chest would tighten until I could barely breathe. So one night, I sat up, hugged my pillow, and said softly, "Lord, I don't want to live like this." That's when God taught me the prayer of breath. I inhaled slowly and prayed, "Lord Jesus Christ." I exhaled slowly and whispered, "Have mercy on me." Again. 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 No fancy words. Just breathing His name. My heartbeat slowed. My mind quieted. It felt like Jesus sat beside my bed and simply stayed. Third challenge, discouragement. There was a season when everything I touched seemed to fail. Projects fell apart. Plans got cancelled. Prayers felt unanswered. I looked in the mirror one morning and said aloud, "Evangeline, you're not strong enough." And in that moment, God taught me the prayer of agreement with Scripture. I opened my Bible, not to search for magic, but to listen. My eyes rested on the words, "My grace is sufficient for you." So I said out loud to my reflection, "His grace is sufficient for me." Then again, "His strength is made perfect in my weakness." Then I smiled through tears and whispered, "So it's okay to be weak." Suddenly my weakness wasn't a failure anymore. It was a doorway through which God's strength could walk in. The real turning point came one rainy afternoon. A storm raged outside, but a bigger storm raged inside my heart. Someone I deeply loved said words that wounded me. Sharp. Careless. Deep. I cried in my room and prayed. Lord, heal me, or at least make it hurt less. Silence. Then a gentle nudge in my heart. Pray for them. I responded honestly. No, Lord. They hurt me. Again. Pray for them. So I did. Not beautifully. Not poetically. Just honestly. Lord, bless them. Lord, heal them too. Lord, give them what I wanted them to give me. And something shattered. Not my heart. But my resentment. That's when I discovered the prayer of blessing. Praying good over those who hurt you. I realized forgiveness is not approval of what they did. Forgiveness is releasing the rope so the tug of war ends. I whispered with tears streaming. Jesus, I release them to you. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. But I became different inside my life. When problems came, I didn't panic first. I prayed first. When someone spoke carelessly, I didn't instantly react. I surrendered first. When worries crept into the night, I didn't drown in them. I breathed Jesus' name. I began to live with a quiet strength not born of personality, but of presence. People around me noticed. One friend asked, Evangeline, why are you so calm lately? I smiled and said, it's not calmness. It's prayer. Prayer that surrenders. Prayer that listens. Prayer that breathes. Prayer that blesses. Prayer that agrees with God's word. Prayer that trusts even when it doesn't understand. And in everyday challenges, traffic, deadlines, misunderstandings, fears, I discovered something beautiful. God wasn't far away, waiting in a church building. He was beside me in every ordinary moment. Looking back now, I see it clearly. God didn't teach me prayer techniques so I'd become powerful. He taught me prayer so I would become close. Close enough to hear him whisper. Close enough to hand him my battles. Close enough to know I was never fighting alone. If you saw my life from the outside today, you might still say, nothing miraculous happened. But I know the truth. The miracle happened here. In my heart. In quiet rooms. In whispered words. In tears that became prayers. In fears that became faith. And still, every morning, I wake up and say, Lord, teach me how to pray again today. And he does. After everything that happened, I honestly felt stronger. Not the loud, confident kind of strong, but the steady kind. The kind that whispers, God is here, even when my hands shake. I had my little routines now. The prayer of surrender when people misunderstood me. The prayer of breath when anxiety tightened my chest. The prayer of blessing when I was hurt. The prayer of agreement with Scripture when I felt weak. And I thought, okay God, maybe I'm finally getting the hang of this. I smiled when I prayed. I journaled. I shared small testimonies with friends. Life felt peaceful. But growth rarely happens in comfort. And God, in His love, was about to lead me deeper. The first wave came suddenly. My mother got sick. I remember standing in the hospital hallway, the smell of antiseptic in the air, machines beeping steadily. The doctor spoke kindly but directly. We'll do our best, but recovery will take time. I nodded politely. Inside, my heart screamed. I went into the restroom, locked the stall, leaned my forehead against the cool door and whispered, God, please, please heal her. Silence. So I prayed louder. Lord, you healed in Scripture, heal her now. Still, silence. Fear crept in like cold water. I whispered, what if you don't? That was the question I had avoided my whole life. And suddenly it was sitting beside me. That day, God taught me the prayer of trust without answers. Not trust that everything would instantly become what I wanted, but trust that He would not abandon me even if it didn't. Through tears I prayed, Lord, whether you heal slowly or suddenly, whether I understand or not, I choose to trust you. And then I simply sat there. Not fixing. Not controlling. Just trusting. Second wave, financial pressure. Bills piled like storm clouds. Unexpected expenses. Deadlines. A phone call from the office accountant saying gently, "There's been a delay. Your pay may come late this month." I smiled weakly and said, "I understand." But as soon as the call ended, I whispered, "Lord, what do I do?" That's when God taught me the prayer of daily bread. Not praying for a lifetime supply of answers. Just enough for today. Give us this day our daily bread. I prayed that sentence again and again. Lord, I trust you for today. Tomorrow is yours. Today is ours. And strangely, my fear softened. Nothing miraculous fell from the sky. But needs were met, one day at a time. A friend suddenly said, "Hey, I cooked too much. Do you want some?" An unexpected reimbursement came in. A quiet peace followed. God wasn't late. He was teaching me dependence. Third wave, spiritual dryness. This one surprised me the most. After everything God had taught me about prayer, I suddenly didn't feel anything. No goosebumps. No tears. No emotional warmth. I prayed and it sounded like my own voice echoing back. I whispered one night, "Lord, are you still here?" Silence. Not angry silence. Not rejecting silence. Just silence. That is where God taught me the prayer of faithful presence. Prayer that doesn't depend on feelings. Prayer that stays because love stays. I said quietly, "God, I don't feel you, but I will still pray. I don't feel strong, but I will still worship. Prayer is not my emotion. Prayer is my commitment." And slowly, I realized something. Even when I didn't feel Him, He still held me breathing, waking, living. Sometimes it isn't God who is absent. It's just the noise settling so we can learn faith beyond feelings. The turning point came with a phone call. A friend sobbed on the other end of the line. "Evangeline, I'm losing hope." I listened. Marriage problems. Family pressure. Exhaustion. She cried, "Can you pray for me? You're good at praying." I almost laughed through tears. If only she knew how often my prayers were shaky, whispered, unfinished fragments. But I answered softly, "Yes. Let's pray." And right there on the phone, God led me into something new. The prayer of standing in the gap. I prayed words like, "Lord, when she is too weak to stand, we stand together. Where her faith is tired, let mine hold her for a while. Carry her as you carried me." She cried while I prayed. I cried while I prayed. When we hung up, I sat quietly and realized prayer wasn't just about me anymore. God was teaching me to lift others the way He had lifted me. And that changed everything. No, my life did not become free of problems. But my spirit learned to trust without full explanations. Ask for daily bread, not lifetime guarantees. Remain faithful even when feelings fade. Stand in prayer for others who are falling. One afternoon, while walking home, I whispered, "Lord, I'm not the same woman anymore, am I?" And in the quiet of my heart, I sensed His answer. "No, you're becoming who I always saw." Prayer no longer felt like a task. Prayer became the way I walked into rooms. The way I faced problems. The way I loved people. The way I breathed. I didn't just say prayers. I started to live inside prayer. And that was triumph. Looking back at this chapter of my journey, I can see God didn't just teach me techniques. He taught me relationship. He taught me not all prayers bring instant change. But all prayers bring me closer to Him. Not all prayers quiet the storm. But all prayers quiet the soul inside the storm. And most of all, even when I hear nothing. Even when I see nothing. Even when I feel nothing. God is still working in silence. Still holding my life together. Still listening to every whispered word. So every day, I continue my simple prayer. Lord, stay with me as I learn to stay with you. And He does. Oh. He does.
My name is Hazel, and I used to believe peace was something other people had. I thought peace belonged to people whose lives were organized, whose prayers were always answered the way they hoped, whose families were healthy, whose hearts hadn't been broken. I was not one of those people. I was the girl who smiled in public and shattered in private. The girl who said, "I'm fine," while falling apart silently. The girl who whispered prayers at night with tears soaking her pillow, hoping God was listening. This is my story, the story of how I tried to control everything, lost almost everything, and found peace not when life became easier, but when I finally surrendered my worries to God. Morning used to feel like climbing a mountain before I even got out of bed. The alarm would ring, and anxiety would wake up before I did. Bills. Work. Expectations. My father's health. A relationship that wasn't working anymore but hurt too much to let go of. The fear of failure. The fear of being a disappointment. I would sit at the edge of my bed and whisper, "Hazel, you don't get to break down today. Hold it together." Some days I succeeded. Other days, I pretended. One morning, Mom knocked on my door. Her voice was gentle but tired. "Hazel? You'll be late again." I answered, "Yeah. I'm coming." My voice sounded normal. It always did. But inside, I wanted to curl up and just rest from being strong. On the jeepney ride to work, the city moved like it didn't care who was hurting. People laughed, scrolled through phones, stared out windows. I wondered if anyone else felt like they were held together by threads. At work, my coworker Mia leaned over and smiled. "You okay? You look tired again." I automatically replied, "Yeah. Just didn't sleep much." Inside, I wanted to say, "No. I'm not okay. I'm scared. I'm overwhelmed. I'm losing myself." But I didn't. I wore strength like makeup, convincing from a distance. The breaking point came quietly, and then all at once. It was raining, the kind of rain that feels heavy, like God Himself is grieving with you. First, my supervisor called me in. He sighed. "Hazel, you used to be one of our most consistent performers. Lately you're distracted, unfocused. Are you dealing with something?" I wanted to scream, "Yes, everything." Instead, I said softly, "I'm sorry. I'll do better." Then my phone vibrated. Mom's message. "Come to the hospital now. It's your dad." The world tilted. The hospital smell, antiseptic and fear, wrapped around me. Machines beeped steadily, but nothing inside me felt steady. Dad looked so small in that bed. I took his hand and whispered, "Hi, Dad. I'm here." He opened his eyes slightly and forced a smile. "My brave girl." I broke. Tears came before words did. "Dad, please get better." He whispered, "Hazel, you worry too much. Give your worries to God." And inside my heart, something snapped and cried back. But I don't know how. Later, in the hallway, Mom tried to be strong, but I saw her trembling. "We just have to pray," she said. I nodded, but in my mind, the questions were screaming. Why is this happening? Why now? What if I lose him? Why is everything falling apart at once? That night, I went into the empty hospital chapel. No choir. No music. Just dim light and an old wooden cross. I sat at the back pew, dropped my head into my hands, and whispered, not a formal prayer, but a cry. God, where are you? I'm doing everything I can. I'm trying to be faithful. I obey. I pray. But I'm tired. I'm so tired. Why won't you fix this? Silence answered. Not angering silence, but heavy silence. And my worry screamed louder than my faith. I was still trying to control everything. Outcomes. Timing. People's choices. The future. I wanted guarantees, not trust. I wanted answers, not surrender. And I was breaking under the weight of it. The turning point didn't happen with lightning or miracles. It happened softly, like a whisper I almost missed. It was early morning in the hospital. The sky outside the window was barely light, the soft blue before sunrise. Dad was sleeping peacefully, even with all those tubes and machines. My hands trembled again, the familiar shaking of anxious thoughts. A nurse passed by, older, calm, eyes full of something I didn't have. She paused and gently asked. No sleep? I shook my head. She said kindly. We do our best. God does the rest. Peace comes when we learn the difference. She smiled and walked away, but her words stayed. Peace comes when we learn the difference. For the first time, I stopped talking at God. I simply sat with him. No bargaining. No rehearsed prayers. No trying to sound faithful. Just me, exhausted, honest. And then I prayed like this. God. I don't know how to do this anymore. I can't carry my dad's health, my job, my future, my fears. I surrender. I give you the things I can't control. I give you my worry. I give you my fear. I don't know what will happen, but I choose to trust you, even without answers. I cried, but it wasn't panic anymore. It was release. Like finally breathing after holding my breath for years. Nothing around me changed immediately. But something inside me did. For the first time, my hands opened. Peace didn't mean problems disappeared. Dad didn't jump up healed overnight. Bills didn't vanish. Responsibilities didn't dissolve. But the storm inside me quieted. I returned to work calmer. My supervisor looked at me curiously. Hazel, you seem lighter. I smiled. I stopped trying to be God. Mia hugged me tightly. Whatever you did, keep doing it. Dad slowly, so slowly, improved. Each day was a gift, not a guarantee. One afternoon he squeezed my hand and whispered. You look peaceful, my Hazel. I laughed softly. I surrendered, Dad. He nodded. Then you finally learned how to live. And he was right. Surrender didn't mean giving up. It meant trusting the one who loved me more than I loved my own plans. I still prayed, but differently. Not, God, do what I want. But, God, I trust you, whatever happens. I walked outside one evening after visiting Dad. The rain had stopped. The streets were wet, reflecting city lights like scattered stars. I whispered. You were here the whole time, weren't you? And for the first time in a long time, my heart felt quiet. Not empty. Peaceful. Looking back, I realized something painful but beautiful. I never had control. I only had the illusion of it. And God wasn't asking me to be strong. He was asking me to be surrendered. If you're listening to this and your heart is heavy, if your pillow knows your tears, if you smile in public and fall apart in private, I want to tell you gently. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Peace doesn't come from fixing everything. Peace comes from trusting the one who holds everything. Tonight, my prayer is simple. God, I place in your hands what I cannot carry in mine. And when worry returns, because it does, I surrender again. Because the God I thought was silent was holding me all along. I wish I could tell you that after I surrendered my worries to God once, everything became easy. But peace is not a button you press. It is a relationship you return to, again and again. Life kept moving forward. Dad was stable, but still fragile. Work was still work. Responsibilities still waited for me every morning, like a pile of unopened letters. And one evening, as I sat by the window listening to distant traffic, worry knocked on my heart again. Not loudly this time. Softly. Sneaky. Like a familiar friend I was supposed to stop seeing. The thought whispered. What if it all falls apart again? And just like that, anxiety tried to reclaim old territory. I sighed and said to myself, Hazel, surrender is not something you do once. It's something you live. There was a night when Dad suddenly had trouble breathing again. The monitor alarms beeped, nurses rushed in, and for a moment, my heart shattered just like before. Old worries flooded back like a storm breaking through a window I forgot to lock. I heard my own voice shaking as I whispered, God, please, not again. Mom looked at me with watery eyes. Hazel, pray. I wanted to say, I am praying. I'm just scared. But instead, I held her hand and we stood there in silence, two hearts beating through fear. The doctor finally came out and said, He's okay. Just a scare. We stabilized him. Relief washed over me so fast I had to sit down. And right there in that hospital hallway, I realized something important. Peace is not the absence of fear. Peace is choosing trust while your hands are still shaking. That night, I didn't try to sound holy. I didn't try to impress heaven. I just prayed like a daughter talking to a father who already knew my heart. God, I'm still learning. I still worry. But I'm not running from you anymore. I'm running to you, even with my fear. And I felt it again. Not fireworks. Not visions. Just presence. A quiet assurance that said, You're not alone. A few days later, Dad looked at me with tired but joyful eyes. Hazel, come here. I leaned closer. Yes, Dad? He smiled. You've grown. Not just older, deeper. I can see it. I laughed softly. I'm still scared, Dad. He squeezed my hand. Courage is not being unafraid. Courage is trusting God while afraid. His words didn't erase my worries. They reframed them. Life gently shifted. I noticed small miracles. Laughter returning to our house. Sunlight through hospital windows feeling warm instead of harsh. Coworkers saying, You seem different, Hazel. Mia hugged me one afternoon and said, Whatever you've been going through, it's making you glow. I smiled. It's not me. I finally stopped trying to run my own universe. She laughed. Teach me how. And for the first time, I shared my story out loud. How surrender didn't make me weaker, it freed me from pretending to be strong alone. There came a quiet morning when I went back to the same hospital chapel. I sat in the same wooden pew. Same cross. Same silence. But a different me. I whispered. God, whether my life looks how I planned or not, I choose you. Not because I understood everything. Not because I knew the ending. But because I finally trusted the author. I placed my plans, my fears, my unanswered questions, into his hands again. And again. And again. Because surrender is not a single moment. It is a rhythm. A daily release. I used to believe that surrender meant losing. Now I'm learning, it's where real strength is born. The weeks after my prayer in the hospital chapel felt different. Not easier. Just different. There was a quietness in my heart I hadn't felt before, like the storm inside me had finally grown tired of screaming. Mom sat beside Dad's hospital bed, brushing his hair back gently. She whispered, "Hazel, make sure you rest too." I smiled a little and answered, "Don't worry, Mom. I'm okay." But inside, I confessed to God, "Lord, I'm not okay. But I know you're here." Dad opened his eyes slowly. "Hey, Hazel," he whispered. His voice was softer than I remembered. "Hey, Dad," I answered, forcing brightness into my words. He smiled faintly. "You always tried to carry the world." He paused for breath. "You don't have to anymore." Those words landed deeper than he could have known. I didn't have to carry everything. I didn't have to control outcomes. Fix everyone. Pretend I wasn't afraid. That night at home, I cried again, but it was different. It wasn't panic. It was release. I said aloud into the quiet room, "God, I still don't know what will happen. I still don't understand your timing. But I trust you more than I trust my fear." The next morning, I walked outside before sunrise. The sky was painted with soft pink and gold light. I whispered, "Even the sky trusts you enough to wait for the sun." Later that week, my friend Mara hugged me tightly. She said, "Hazel, you sound lighter. You sound peaceful." I laughed through grateful tears. "Peace," I said, "didn't come when life got better. It came when I stopped fighting God." There were still long hospital nights. There were still tears. There were still unknowns. But worry no longer owned me. Surrender had become my strength. And every time fear whispered, "What if?" faith gently answered, "Even then, God will be there." Dad squeezed my hand one evening and said, "I'm proud of you, Hazel." He smiled. For finally letting God be God. And in that moment, I realized something. Peace doesn't come when everything is fixed. Peace comes when your heart finally rests in His hands. And mine had. This is the part of the story I never expected to tell. The days ahead didn't suddenly become perfect. Bills still came. Test results still scared us. Life still felt fragile, like glass in trembling hands. But I was different now. One evening, after a particularly hard day, I walked into the hospital room and saw Dad staring out the window. The sunset poured warm light across his face. He said quietly, "Hazel, come here." I sat beside him and he whispered, "Do you remember when you were little and you were afraid of the dark?" I laughed softly. "I still don't like it." He squeezed my hand. "You'd grab my arm and say, 'As long as you're here, I'm not scared.'" I felt tears fill my eyes. He looked at me, calm, gentle. "That's what faith is, Hazel. You still walk through the dark. But you're not alone." That night, fear tried to return. It always does. "What if you lose him?" fear whispered. "What if everything falls apart?" I closed my eyes and prayed. "God, I don't know the ending of this chapter. But I know you are already there." And peace wrapped around me again. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just steady, like a strong hand holding mine. Days turned into weeks. Some days Dad laughed. Some days he slept more than he spoke. Some days we prayed in silence because words were too small. Mom broke down in the hallway one afternoon. She cried, "I don't think I'm strong enough." I wrapped my arms around her and said softly, "We don't have to be strong enough. We just have to stay in God's hands." For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to control everything. I wasn't bargaining with God. I simply said, over and over, "Lord, your will. Your time. Your way." And I meant it. Surrender didn't make me weaker. It made me free. My story isn't about everything turning out perfectly. It's about finding peace even when I didn't get all the answers. Some prayers were answered the way I hoped. Some weren't. But God was faithful in all of it. I used to think peace meant the storm stopped. Now I know. Peace is God sitting beside you in the storm, whispering, "I'm here. I won't leave." If you're listening to this, maybe you're tired too. Maybe you've carried fear, guilt, pressure, expectations, and pain for so long your soul feels bruised. Maybe you've said the same words I did in the hospital chapel. God, I'm scared. Why won't you fix this? I can't promise easy answers. But I can tell you this. The moment you stop fighting alone, the moment you stop pretending you're in control, and you finally whisper, "God, I surrender this," something sacred happens. Not always instant miracles. But peace. Real peace. Quiet peace. Lasting peace. The kind that lets you sleep again. The kind that lets you breathe again. The kind that reminds you, you were never meant to carry everything by yourself. Your heart, your future, your worries. They are safest in His hands. And that is where I leave mine now. If my story touched your heart, stay with me for a moment. There are people out there, just like you and me, holding silent battles no one sees. If this gave you hope, like this video so more people can hear it. Share it with someone who feels overwhelmed right now. Subscribe and join me as we keep walking, surrendering, and finding peace together. And remember, you are not alone. God is closer than your next breath. Let Him carry what you can't anymore. My name is Abigail, and today I'm sitting here with you, heart to heart, voice to soul, because I know something about you already. You are still standing, even after everything you've walked through. And yet, maybe right now, it doesn't feel like you're standing, it feels like you're barely holding on. What do you do when it seems like suffering just won't stop? What do you do when the pain doesn't seem to have a point, when the questions outnumber the answers, and the noise inside your heart feels louder than anything outside of you? What do you do when your weaknesses don't seem to be improving, when it feels like the same struggle returns again and again, like waves pounding the same shore? Maybe your storm has a name. Maybe it's your finances, the bills, the pressure, the weight you carry quietly. Maybe it's your children, the concern you can't turn off even when you try to sleep. Maybe it's your marriage, the distance nobody else sees, the conversations left unspoken. Maybe it's your health, the appointments, the uncertainty, the fear you don't say out loud. Or maybe it's something so personal you don't even have words for it yet. You find yourself lying on the mat of life, feeling knocked down, staring at the ceiling thinking, "I didn't see this coming, and I don't know how to get back up." People ask how you're doing and you smile and say, "I'm fine." But you know, you are not fine. Not today. We are human. And humans struggle. Humans break sometimes. Humans cry in the car, in the shower, in silence, in prayer. Humans bleed emotionally in places no one else will ever see. And somewhere along the way, many of us learned this myth, that real strength is never showing weakness. That strength means silence. That courage means pretending. But I'm here, as Abigail, to tell you the truth. Strength is not the absence of weakness. Strength is honesty in the presence of it. There will be days when sadness sits on your chest like extra gravity, when getting out of bed feels heroic, when lifting a fork feels like work, when conversation feels impossible. There will be weeks when motivation hides and exhaustion takes its place. There will be moments when you wonder if the light will ever return to your eyes again. And then, in those moments, you are faced with a choice. To give up. Or to get up. Not perfectly. Not quickly. Not beautifully. But honestly, and slowly, and bravely. Sometimes saving your own life does not look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like getting dressed. Sometimes it looks like drinking water. Sometimes it looks like asking for help. Sometimes it looks like saying, I'm not okay, but I'm still here. We all struggle. Every single one of us. That isn't weakness, that is evidence that you are alive. And as much as I would erase your pain if I could, I have learned something through my own valleys. Pain may push us down, but it also awakens us. Darkness may surround us, but it teaches us to recognize light when it returns. Valleys exist so that mountains can mean something. Life is not always easy. Life is not always comfortable. But life is still worth living. When you fail, try again. And when you fail again, try again differently. And when it hurts, rest, and then continue. Hold on to faith, whatever faith means for you, faith that there is meaning on the other side of this storm, even if you can't see it through the rain right now. This moment, the one you are living, is not your ending. It is a page. Maybe even a chapter. But it is not the whole book of you. Your story is still being written. Your hands still hold the pen. So I need you to do something. Get busy living again. Not rushing. Not forcing. Living, slowly, intentionally, steadily. As long as air moves in and out of your lungs, as long as your eyes open to another morning, there is time. There is possibility. There is story yet to unfold. The last chapter of your life has not been written. If you are listening right now, it means every dark night you have faced so far has failed to overcome you. Not because it wasn't heavy, but because you are still here. Maybe you are in your darkest place right now. Maybe you don't recognize yourself in the mirror. Maybe hope feels distant. If that is you, hold on. Don't quit here. Don't let this chapter convince you it is the whole story. Sometimes the question isn't, why am I in this storm? But instead, am I in a storm? Or am I between two miracles? The painful parts of your life are not wasted material. They can become seeds, seeds of compassion, resilience, depth, wisdom, empathy. We do not come out of storms identical to who we were going in. We become something new. What if I told you that greatness lives on the other side of this darkness? That joy is not gone, only sleeping? That there is more strength inside you than you've ever had to use before? You are not going to be destroyed by this. You may be changed, yes. But not destroyed. I know you're tired. I know the questions feel heavy. I know the waiting hurts. Maybe it's addiction. Maybe it's uncertainty. Maybe it's loneliness. Maybe it's grief that comes in waves. But listen to me closely. You are not going to die in this trial. You are not going to fade away here. You are going to rise from this place, slowly, steadily, bravely. Go look in the mirror, truly look. Not at the flaws. Not at the old wounds. Look into your own eyes and say gently, I am a survivor. Say it again. I am a survivor. You have made it through every worst day of your life so far. Every heartbreak. Every disappointment. Every night you thought would never end. And still, here you are. Now I want you to breathe. Wherever you are. Let your shoulders drop. Unclench your jaw. Release your hands. And with me, speak life into the places inside you that feel abandoned or forgotten. Say, I can get through this. I will get through this. I must get through this. Not because you have to be perfect. Not because you have to be strong every second. But because your life still matters. Your presence still matters. Your voice still matters. And if today all you do is keep going, that is enough. There will be dawn after this night. There will be laughter after these tears. There will be new beginnings after these endings. You do not have to know how. You only have to take the next small step. This is Abigail, and I am proud of you for listening, for trying, for staying. You are not alone in this journey. And the story of you, precious, unrepeatable you, is not finished yet. Keep going. You can. If you're still with me, then I want you to take a deep breath. Let it fill your lungs, and let it out slowly. Let's keep going together, because this next part is about what happens after the storm, even when you don't see it yet. You see, surviving the darkest moments isn't just about getting through them. It's about noticing who you become along the way. Pain doesn't just knock you down, it teaches you. It strips away everything that isn't real, and in its place, it asks, who are you, really? Maybe right now you feel exhausted. Maybe your energy is gone, your motivation is hiding, and you can barely see past the day ahead. I know that feeling all too well. It's a quiet kind of despair, the kind that whispers, you'll never make it. Just give up. But let me tell you something important, that whisper is a lie. The very fact that you are still here, breathing, thinking, listening, proves that you can make it. You are stronger than the storm you're in. And storms, no matter how violent, no matter how long, always end. It may not feel like it now, but there is a shift coming. There is a moment ahead when the heaviness on your chest will lift, even if only slightly. And in that moment, you will realize, you were not destroyed. You were prepared. Every setback, every failure, every heartbreak, they are training you. They are teaching you patience, teaching you endurance, teaching you what really matters. And while you've been surviving, you've been growing, quietly, invisibly, but powerfully. And here's the part that most people forget, growth doesn't look glamorous. It doesn't arrive with a fanfare or applause. Growth often looks like showing up when you don't want to. Growth looks like putting one foot in front of the other. Growth looks like saying to yourself, I can't do this, but I will anyway. And that's exactly what I want you to do right now. Say it out loud, if you can. I may be tired. I may be broken. But I will keep moving forward. I will survive. I will rise. Yes, keep saying it. Breathe it. Let it settle in your bones. Because this is not just motivation, it's truth. You are rising. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, it is carving out the person you are meant to be. I know it hurts. I know sometimes the pain feels endless. I know that nights feel colder, the weight heavier, and hope harder to find. But let me tell you something else, even in darkness, even when you cannot see it yet, there is light forming. Even when you feel hopeless, life is quietly preparing something extraordinary for you. You are not your failures. You are not your pain. You are not your worst day. You are the survivor who will tell the story of how you made it through. You are the one who will rise, stronger and wiser than before. And the moment you begin to believe that fully, the moment you embrace that truth, the world begins to open its arms to you. So I need you to promise me something, right now. Promise me that no matter how long it takes, no matter how heavy the night feels, no matter how many times you stumble, you will keep going. You will get up again. And you will say yes to life again, because your story isn't finished yet. Remember this, the dark valleys are not forever. They are temporary. They are chapters, not the whole book. And even if you cannot see it today, the peaks are coming. The joy, the laughter, the moments of pure relief and light, they are waiting for you, just ahead. And when you finally see that light, you will look back at this time and say, that pain didn't break me. It made me stronger. It taught me to keep going when I thought I couldn't. You are stronger than you know. You are braver than you feel. You are not finished. And this, right here, right now, is the beginning of the next chapter of your story. So, breathe again. Lift your head. And take one more step forward. You are still here. And being here means you still have the power to rise. Now that you've taken that next step, I want you to pause for just a moment. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your heartbeat. Feel the air moving through your lungs. You're still here. You're still breathing. And that is proof. Proof that you have survived everything life has thrown at you so far. But here's the thing about survival, it isn't just about getting through. It's about learning, it's about growing, it's about rising. And today, I want to remind you that rising isn't optional. It's your birthright. Think about all the times you thought you couldn't make it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every doubt, every fear, you made it through. And that means, my friend, that you can rise again. Not tomorrow. Not someday. But right now, even in the smallest way, you can begin to rise. I want you to picture something for me. Close your eyes if you need to. Imagine standing on the edge of a cliff after a storm. The clouds are beginning to part, and light spills across the valley below. You've been battered by the wind, drenched by rain, unsure if your strength would hold. But you are standing. You are still standing. And in that moment, everything changes. Because rising is not just about standing, it's about moving forward. It's about choosing to embrace life fully, even when it scares you. Even when your past screams at you, you can't do this. You can. And you will. Now, let me remind you of something even more powerful. The pain you've been through is not wasted. Every struggle, every heartbreak, every time life knocked you down, it was shaping you. You are stronger, wiser, and more resilient than you realize. And the person you've become is ready for more than survival. You are ready for triumph. Yes, triumph. Not a shallow, temporary joy, but deep, unshakable victory. Triumph that comes from knowing, I made it through the storm. I faced the dark. And I did not break. So here's what I want you to do. Take a deep breath, and with me, say it. Yes, life will have challenges. Yes, storms will come again. But you are no longer the person who bends and breaks under pressure. You are the person who stands, who moves, who rises. You are unstoppable in ways you have yet to discover. So I want you to carry this truth with you, your story is not over. Not today. Not tomorrow. You are alive. You are powerful. You are worthy of every dream, every joy, every blessing waiting for you. And if life ever feels too heavy again, remember this moment. Remember that you survived. Remember that you rose. Remember that no darkness can define your light. This is Abigail, telling you, the best is still ahead. Your triumph is coming. Your story is not finished. And the most beautiful chapters of your life are waiting for you, just beyond this moment. Rise. Shine. Live. And never, ever give up. Before we finish today, I want you to take a moment with me. Close your eyes if you can, and imagine something. Imagine yourself a little while from now, standing in a place of light. The storm you've been in, the pain you've carried, the nights you felt like giving up, they are behind you. You're breathing easier, your chest feels lighter, and you're walking forward with a little more courage than yesterday. Now, think about the person next to you, or someone you know, or even someone you've never met, who might be in that storm right now. They might feel invisible. They might feel like hope has abandoned them. And in this moment, you have the power to be a spark for them. If this video helped you find a glimmer of that light, I want you to like it. Let it be a small but meaningful way of saying, yes, I'm choosing hope. Yes, I'm choosing to rise. Then, take it a step further. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. Share it with a friend, a loved one, a coworker, or even post it somewhere online. You have no idea whose life you might touch. That simple action could give someone the courage to get up, to try again, to believe in themselves. You could literally change a life today. And finally, if you want to keep walking this path with me, if you want more stories that remind you of your strength, your resilience, and the light that still exists even in the darkest places, subscribe to this channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment of encouragement, a word of hope, or a reminder that you are not alone in your journey. Because here's the truth I want you to carry with you, your story is still being written. Your chapters are not finished. And every like, every share, every subscription is part of building a community where we lift each other up, where we remind each other that we are fighters, that we are survivors, and that we are never truly alone. So take a deep breath with me. Feel your heart beating. Feel your strength returning. And when you're ready, hit that like, click share, and subscribe. Not just as a click or a button, but as a promise to yourself. A promise to keep going. A promise to rise. Because the best is still ahead. Your light is still coming. And I'll be here with you, every step of the way.
Have you ever looked at the wreckage of a good life, and asked the one question that feels like a betrayal to even utter? Why? We are taught from childhood that if you play by the rules, you win. If you are kind, you are rewarded. We crave a world that makes sense, a cosmic vending machine, where we insert righteousness and receive blessing. But then, the storm hits. Suddenly, the math doesn't add up. Life is undeniably, brutally unfair. Tonight, we are sitting in the ashes with a man who knew this silence better than anyone. We're exploring the book of Job, not as a dusty Sunday school lesson, but as a roadmap for anyone who feels like God has forgotten the rules of fairness. Life is unfair, but God is fair. Understanding the difference between those two things will change the way you breathe. Let's look at Job. He wasn't just good, the Bible describes him as blameless. He had 7 sons, 3 daughters, and thousands of livestock. He was proactive in his faith, living in what we call a hedge of protection. But in the celestial realm, the accuser argues that Job's faith is bought and paid for. Take away his stuff, he says, and he will curse you. This sets the stage. Is our worship a transaction, or is it a relationship? Consider Eunice. She left a toxic job by faith, expecting God to open doors immediately. Instead, she faced 6 months of silence. When an offer finally came, it was rescinded hours later. She sat on her floor and asked, "Why did you give me hope just to take it away?" Eunice realized that her hedge was her own expectation. In the silence, she learned that God wasn't providing a job, He was providing Himself. Eventually, a traineeship opened that perfectly aligned with her calling. The fairness wasn't in the timing, it was in the transformation. Reflect on the hedge of health. We often think our physical safety is a reward for our faith. I knew a young mother named Clara who ate organically, ran marathons, and prayed daily. When she was diagnosed with an aggressive illness, her fairness world collapsed. She spent months angry at the hedge that failed her. But in the middle of her treatment, she began to notice others in the waiting room who had no hope. She realized that God hadn't removed the hedge to punish her, but to place her in a field where she could be a light to those in the darkest shadows. In a single day, Job loses everything. Wealth, servants, and all 10 children. Shortly after, his health is struck. He sits in a pile of ash, scraping his skin with pottery. His friends arrive, and they represent the fairness doctrine. They tell him, "You must have sinned. God is just, therefore you must be guilty." We see this struggle in Daniel Ritchie, Born Without Arms. Like Job, he faced a world that looked at him and saw a mistake. People's theological explanations for his disability were often as cruel as Job's friends. But in the ash pile of his limitations, Daniel found that his worth wasn't in what he could do, but in whose he was. Then there is the story of a man named Thomas. Thomas spent 40 years as a faithful accountant for a nonprofit. He was 2 years from retirement when he was framed for a financial discrepancy he didn't commit. He lost his pension and his reputation. Like Job, he sat in the ashes of a destroyed name. He spent 3 years fighting in court, feeling the stinging unfairness of a lie. But during those 3 years, he started a small Bible study for men in legal trouble. He found a ministry he would have never sought in his comfort. He learned that while the court system was unfair, God was using the injustice to position him for an eternal impact. Think also of the woman who, at 40, lost her home and family to addiction. She slept behind a dumpster, feeling the curse God and die wait every day. But like Job, she cried out from the bottom. Today, she helps others break free. She didn't get her original years back, but she was restored to a version of herself purified by fire. Consider the unfairness of grief. When we lose someone we love too early, we scream at the sky. A friend of mine lost her husband to a sudden heart attack on their 20th anniversary. It felt like a cosmic joke. She felt the silence of God for 2 years. But in that silence, she discovered a God who doesn't just fix things, but a God who weeps with us. She realized that fairness isn't about the length of a life, but the depth of the love shared within it. After chapters of silence, God speaks from a whirlwind. He asks Job, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" He takes Job on a tour of the cosmos, the constellations, and the wild strength of the Leviathan. The turning point is when Job realizes, "I cannot see the whole picture, but I can see the one who draws it." Take Neil, a provider who lost his job during an economic crash. 18 months of scraping the pottery of his bank account. Neil's whirlwind moment came when he realized God's timetable is a compass, not a clock. He learned that God is never late, but he is rarely early. On the very day they considered asking for emergency aid, a recruiter called. Think of a scientist I know, someone who spent her life looking through microscopes. She struggled with the why of natural disasters. Her whirlwind moment came when she realized the staggering complexity of the ecosystem. She saw that even destructive forces like forest fires lead to new growth that can't happen any other way. She realized that our definition of fairness is often just a lack of data. God's fairness is the management of 1 billion interconnected lives across 1 billion years. Reflect on the unfairness of success. Sometimes we see the wicked prosper and we feel the sting. A young entrepreneur watched his dishonest competitor get the multi-million-dollar contract while he stayed small but honest. He felt like a fool. But 3 years later, the competitor was in prison for fraud, and the honest man had a business built on a foundation of granite. He realized that God's fairness is often a slow cooker, not a microwave. The triumph of Job isn't just the return of his wealth. Job says, "I had heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you." I think of a couple whose marriage was crumbling. A job offer was rescinded due to an unfair lie. They were devastated. However, because that door slammed shut, her current boss offered her a promotion near her husband. If the unfair thing hadn't happened, she would have settled for less. God used an act of unfairness to position her for a double blessing. Consider the triumph of the scar. We want our lives to be perfectly smooth. But a master carpenter once told me that the most beautiful wood is the wood with the most knots and burls, the wood that has survived the most stress. Job's restoration didn't erase his history, it gave his history a new meaning. Lastly, reflect on the unfairness of grace. We want fairness for our enemies, but we want mercy for ourselves. The ultimate unfair act was the cross, where a perfect man took the punishment for an imperfect world. When we realize that we don't actually want fairness from God, because fairness would mean we get what our sins deserve, we begin to cherish His fairness, which is actually a commitment to our ultimate restoration. If you are in your ash pile season, your pain is not proof of God's absence. Life is unfair because we live in a broken world. But God is fair because He is the ultimate restorer. He is the one who sits in the ashes with you. Hold on. Your story doesn't end in chapter 1. There is a chapter 42 coming. Thank you for spending this hour with me. If this reflection brought you peace, please like this video and share it with someone walking through a storm. And don't forget to subscribe so we can continue exploring these truths together. I'm Jessica. Rest in the truth that He is with you. I'll see you in the next one.
Won't give you more than you can handle. They say it like a greeting card, like a pat on the shoulder when your world is smelling like smoke. But what do you do when the floor doesn't just creak, it vanishes? I used to think ready was a requirement for called. I thought there'd be a rehearsal, a syllabus, a warm-up lap. But God doesn't always invite you to the water. Sometimes, He drops you in the middle of the Atlantic during a gale and says, "Swim." Tonight, I want to talk to the person who is currently gasping for air. The one looking at a situation, a diagnosis, a loss, a responsibility they never asked for, and screaming into the silence, God, how do I get through this? Because I've been there. I'm still there. And the answer isn't a map. It's a surrender. Let's go back to the before. My life was a series of neatly labeled boxes. I had my 5-year plan. I had my morning routine. I had my faith tucked away in a Sunday-sized compartment. I felt prepared for life because I had stayed within the lines. I think that's our first mistake. We mistake comfort for readiness. We think because we are stable, we are prepared. I remember the morning it happened. It wasn't a thunderclap. It was a phone call at 3 a.m. The kind of ringing that doesn't just wake you up, it alters your DNA. In 10 seconds, the me I knew was gone. I was suddenly the primary caregiver for a life I didn't know how to save. I was the one holding the keys to a house that was falling down. I looked at my hands and they were shaking. I looked at the sky and it was indifferent. I said, God, you've got the wrong person. I'm the assistant type. I'm the background person. I didn't study for this. I haven't prayed enough for this. I am not ready. And the silence that followed? That was the most terrifying part. The messy middle isn't a single event. It's a marathon run in the dark on an incline you didn't train for. When the adrenaline of the initial crisis wears off, that's when the real conflict begins. It's the 3-month mark. The 6-month mark. It's when the thinking of you cards stop coming in the mail, but the weight of the situation is heavier than it was on day one. I remember sitting in my car in the grocery store parking lot. Just sitting. I couldn't go in because I couldn't decide between 2 brands of cereal. That's what unready looks like, it's a total system failure. Your brain is so saturated with survival that the simplest tasks feel like climbing Everest. I started to resent God. Let's be honest about that. We like to pretend our faith is a polished diamond, but in the middle of the conflict, it's more like a jagged piece of glass. I'd look at the sky and say, is this a joke to you? Do you enjoy watching me fray at the edges? I felt like a bridge designed for foot traffic that was suddenly being forced to carry 18-wheelers. I could hear the bolts popping. I could feel the concrete cracking. And then comes the silence. The silence of God in a crisis is a specific kind of torture. You're shouting for a blueprint, and He's giving you nothing. Or so it seems. I realized later that He wasn't silent, He was working. You don't talk much when you're performing open-heart surgery. You're focused. You're precise. You're cutting away what's dead so the heart can actually beat again. In the conflict, I tried to use my old tools. I tried to hustle my way out of grief. I tried to logic my way out of a broken heart. I tried to organize my way out of a disaster. But you can't use a map of the desert to navigate the ocean. God was stripping my hands of every tool I had built for myself, until I was standing there with nothing but my own breath and a desperate, help. That help is the most honest prayer a human can utter. It's the sound of the ego finally dying. The turning point didn't come when the situation changed. The situation was still a mess. The debt was still there. The grief was still heavy. The turning point came when I stopped asking, how do I get out, and started asking, who are you in this with me? I remember sitting on the kitchen floor, surrounded by papers I didn't understand and a heart I couldn't quiet. And I realized, God doesn't put us in situations we are ready for, He puts us in situations that make us ready for what's coming next. He isn't a cruel coach throwing a non-swimmer into the deep end to watch them drown. He's the one in the water, holding your chin up, whispering, stop kicking against me. Just float. Triumph doesn't sound like a trumpet blast. For me, it sounded like a long, slow exhale. I remember the first morning I woke up and the weight didn't hit me in the chest the second I opened my eyes. It was still there, the situation hadn't vanished, but it was different. It was as if my soul had grown a set of shoulders broad enough to carry it. I realized that God hadn't been ignoring my prayers for the situation to change, He had been answering my unspoken prayer for me to change. I wasn't the assistant anymore. I wasn't the background person who was afraid of her own shadow. Somewhere between the tears and the sleepless nights, a new version of Violet had been forged in the fire. There's a specific kind of strength that only comes from being broken. It's like a bone that heals, it's often strongest at the point of the fracture. I found myself speaking with an authority I never had. I found myself looking at other people's pain not with pity, but with a recognition that said, I know the way through the woods. Follow me. That's the secret of the triumph, it's never just for you. God doesn't put you through a situation you aren't ready for just to see if you can survive it. He does it because there is someone coming up behind you who is going to need a guide. The triumph is realizing that ready was a lie I told myself to feel safe. I will never be ready for what life throws at me, but I am available to the one who is. I learned the theology of the next step. I don't need to see the finish line. I just need enough light for the next 6 inches in front of my feet. And every time I take that step, the light moves with me. I am not the same woman who sat in that grocery store parking lot. I am scarred, yes. I am tired, sometimes. But I am formidable. Not because I am strong, but because I finally stopped fighting the strength that was trying to carry me all along. So, where does that leave us? We've talked about the before, the illusion that we were in control because we were comfortable. We've walked through the middle, where the darkness felt like it was swallowing us whole. And we've stood in the triumph, realizing that we didn't just survive, we were transformed. But the epilogue isn't about the mountain top. It's about the walk back down into the valley, carrying what you've learned. I look at my life now, and I see the scars. I don't hide them anymore. I used to think a successful life was one that remained unblemished, no cracks, no dents, no unready moments. I was wrong. A life with no scars is a life that has never been used for anything significant. If you're looking at your own scars tonight, those remnants of the situation you weren't ready for, I want you to see them for what they really are, evidence. They are evidence that you were hit with the unthinkable, and you are still standing. They are evidence that God's grace is not a theory, it is a tangible, breathable reality that kept your heart beating when you wanted it to stop. I've learned to love the unready version of myself. She's much more interesting than the girl who had all the answers. She's kinder. She's slower to judge. She knows that everyone she meets is fighting a battle they didn't train for. God didn't put you in that situation because He wanted to break you. He put you there because the world needs the version of you that only that fire could produce. You are now a lighthouse. You can't be a lighthouse if you've never seen a storm. Tonight, the storm has passed. Or maybe it hasn't quite passed yet, but you've found your footing. Either way, you are safe. You are held. And you are, finally, exactly who you were meant to be. Before I go, I have an invitation for you. This isn't just a story to listen to and forget. This is a practice. If you are in the thick of it right now, if you are still in that "God, how do I get through this" phase, I want you to do something physical to ground yourself. Place your hand over your heart. Feel that rhythm? That's not just biology. That's a vote of confidence from the Creator. He is still giving you breath because He is not done with your story. Here is your next step. Claim your mantra, in the comments, or in a journal, or just whispered into the air. I want you to say, I am not ready, but I am here. There is immense power in showing up when you feel inadequate. Share the light, think of one person, just one, who is currently drowning in a situation they weren't ready for. Send them this. Don't say, I told you so. Just say, I heard this and thought of you. You aren't alone. Rest. If you've been fighting for so long that your bones ache, let this be your permission to stop fighting for an hour. Go to sleep knowing that the one who watches over you never tires. I'm Violet. I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and most days, I'm still not ready. But I've learned that ready is overrated. Trust is where the magic happens. Thank you for walking this hour with me. I'll be waiting for you in the next one. Peace be with you.